Welcome to sixth grade math. Activity find 1/3 times 1/2 using a model. To find 1/3 times 1/2, find 1/3 of 1/2, which as we've discussed, of is multiplication. Begin with a square to represent 1 and shade half the square yellow. So we've divided this square into halves and we've shaded 1/2 yellow. Shade 1/3 of the square blue. So now we've divided it into thirds going the other way, and we've shaded 1/3 of it blue. And the part that was shaded both yellow and blue appears green. 1/6 of the square is shaded green, so 1/3 times 1/2 equals 1/6. Analyze the results. Describe how you would change the model to find 1/2 times 1/3. Begin with a square to represent 1. Shade 1/3 of the square blue. So we're going to do the thirds first. Shade that blue, and then shade half the square yellow. So we now divide it into halves, going the other way, and shade half yellow. Is the product the same as 1/3 times 1/2? And the answer is yes. 1/6 of the square is shaded green, so 1/3 times 1/2 is 1/6. Just like 1/2 times 1/3 equals 1/6. So 1/4 times 1/2. To find 1/4 of 1/2, find to find 1/4 times 1/2, find 1/4 of 1/2. So begin with a square and shade half the square yellow. Shade a quarter of the square blue. So if we divide it into fourths, going up and down, we get 1/4. And the part that was shaded both yellow and blue appears green. And that is 1/8. So 1/4 times 1/2, or 1/4 of 1/2, is 1/8. 1/3 times 1/4. So 1/3 times 1/4, or 1/3 of 1/4. Begin with a square and shade 1/4 of the square yellow. And then shade 1/3 of the square blue. The part that was shaded both yellow and blue appears green. And that is 1/12 of the square is shaded green. So 1/3 times 1/4 equals 1/12. 1/2 times 1/5. To find 1/2 times 1/5, find 1/2 of 1/5. So we're going to begin with a square that represents 1. And we'll shade 1/5 of the square yellow. And shade 1/2 of the square blue. The part that was shaded both yellow and blue appears green. And 1/10 of the square is shaded green. So 1/2 times 1/5 equals 1/10. 3/5 times 2/3. To find 3/5 times 2/3, find 3/5 of 2/3. Begin with a square to represent 1. Shade 2/3 of the square yellow. So there's 2/3 yellow. Shade 3/5 of the square blue. So that's 3/5. And the part that was shaded both yellow and blue appears green. So 3/5 times 2/3 equals 6/15, which is 2/5. 3/4 times 2/3. To find 3/4 times 2/3, find 3/4 of 2/3. Begin with a square to represent 1. Shade 2/3 of the square yellow, so there's 2/3. Shade 3/4 of the square blue, 3/4 going up and down. And the part that was shaded both yellow and blue appears green. So 6/12 of the square is shaded green. So 3/4 times 2/3 equals 6/12. And we can simplify that down to 1/2. 2/5 times 5/6. Find 2/5 times 5/6. We find 2/5 of 5/6. Begin with a square to represent 1. And we will shade 5/6 of the square yellow. and then shade 2/5 of the square blue. And the part that was shaded both yellow and blue appears green. 10/30 of the square is shaded green, so 2/5 times 5/6 equals 10/30, or 1/3 if we simplify by the greatest common factor of 10. 4/5 times 3/8. Find 4/5 times 3/8. Find 4/5 of 3/8. Begin with a square to represent 1. Shade 3/8 of the square yellow is 3/8. Shade 4/5 of the square blue, so this 4/5. The part that was shaded both yellow and blue appears green. So 12/40 of the square is shaded green. So 4/5 times 3/8 equals 12/40. Or we can simplify that down to 3/10 if we divide by 4. Analyze the results. Explain the relationship between the numerators of the problem and the numerator of the product. So the product of the numerators is equal to the numerator of the product. So what do you notice about the denominators of the problem and the denominators of the product? The product of the denominators is equal to the denominator of the product. A lot of words here. Make a conjecture. Write a rule you can use to multiply fractions. To multiply fractions, multiply the numerators, and then multiply the denominators. That is it for the lesson today. There's no homework. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in class.